Hello, geeks, nerds, and people of all shapes and sizes. This is your friendly neighborhood beer vet again. Oh my goodness. Oh, all right. Part one, I said that the movie and the book wasn't too off. Part two of The Hobbit, the Desolation of Smaulge. I don't even know where to start. Oh my god. This movie was so far off from the books. Every single bit of it was way off. Way off. I don't know. Alright, I don't know who the directors were of The Hobbit. But part one was a lot closer to the books than part two. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy the movie for being a movie. But this is Aragon level bad. Actually, no, Aragon was way worse. But this, holy crap. Okay, let's start. Oh, where to start? All right, we ended with they got out of the goblin tunnels. They were still fleeing. The eagle saved them, and that was the end of that part. All right, so in this part, they start off still running. Even though the eagles took them, in the book, the eagles take them way farther, and they're fine. The wolves aren't after them anymore. They reach a place, a valley, that belongs to, what was his name? Barrowog? I'm sorry, I can't say his name. But he's the skin changer. In the book, he is fantastic. You know, in the book, Gandalf says, hey, we can't all go at once or he'll get angry, so we're going to go two at a time. So I believe Gandalf, Bilbo, and one of the dwarves go first. I like one of the younger ones, I believe. And then at the end, 3 show up. But they go two at a time, every 5-minute intervals. And Gandalf knows this guy. He knows him. So they come into his home, and he is not in bear form like in the movie. The movie is way off. Because in the movie, they all rush to the house. They all go in, shut the door, and the bear tries to eat them, and they close the door real quick. Bear scowls outside and goes. That's not what happened. What happened is they actually got there. No one's chasing them at this point. The wolves are gone. The eagles took them far away from the wolves. Wolves are pissed because their leader got burned, and he's not happy. And neither the goblins, because they killed the goblin prince or whatever. So there's a price on their head now, and the goblins are they're gathering, and they're sending out scouts to try to find them, because they can't go out in the daytime because the light's too bright and they don't like the lights, so they're waiting till dark. But they're still far away. All right. So they get to the house, they each two, and as they're getting there, he wants to understand why they're in his land, what set them off on their journey. So Bilbo and all those, excuse me, tell them the story of what happened as their journey. But they keep out small details, but they pretty much tell them the whole story as they're going. But every 5 minutes he gets interrupted because more doors show up. And there's like this whole joke where he's like, well, hello, you two. And they're like, we're Balwin and I can't say their names, but 2 of the more doors will show up. They'll bow, they'll greet. They'll be like, oh, for crying out loud, I just want to hear the story, because he likes stories. And so he goes, hurry up, sit down, keep going with the story. And Gandalf keeps telling him the story. And 2 more show up every 5 minutes. Finally, the last 3 show up, and he's like, for God's sake, and he keeps changing the story a little bit. You know, there's 3 of us who go out. And he's like, oh, okay. And then there's 2 more, and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I meant to say 5. And 7, the other 2 show, 7. And finally it's like 15, and he's like, okay, is that enough? And this guy has a lot of animal companions. A lot of animals and things serve him in a way. He's very friendly with, he only eats like honey and natural things. So they have big feast. He brings out a bunch of long tables. The animals do. It's weird. It sounds really weird, but in the book, it almost explains like the animals stand on 2 feet, grab stuff, and bring it out. It's pretty interesting. And so this was like the movie really kind of angered me right at the beginning, because it was like they just skipped over that, and then they made him look like this goofy looking thing in the movie, but he was like tall, strong, built. Think of like just a man, like a big, strong man with a long beard. It didn't look like he was like that weird whatever, movie made him look weird. Book, they do a better job explaining what he looks like. Do you have Hagrid on Harry Potter? That's how I think of this guy. Actually, he's a lot like Hagrid from Harry Potter in the book. Because he loves animals, he loves creatures, he loves his land. And so they bring out these long tables, they have big feast, drinks, they all get tired, they all go to sleep. And he says, do not leave at night. Stay inside. No matter what you hear, stay inside. And so he goes out, and he becomes a bear at night. And at night, there's like a big rustle. It sounds like a party, but they're all bear growls. So there's like a pack of bears outside, all doing whatever bears do. And Gandalf tells, has a conversation with Bilbo about, that then it's quiet for a while. And in a couple days, he doesn't show up. And they're starting to get worried, like 2 or 3 days go by. They spend like a week in this dude's house, okay? They eat, they recover. And they spend a long time in Rivendell too, like weeks, okay? Not just one night, weeks in the part 1. So they're spending a good amount of time here, recovering, eating, being cheerful. Finally, he shows back up. And they're like, oh, well, hello. We were worried that you weren't coming back. And he said, well, I liked your story, so I went to go check it out. So he turned to his bear. Him and a bunch of bears went into the mountains to see what's going on, to see if their story was truthful. And he did see where the fires were. He did see, but he also ran into a pack of wolves. They killed most of them. They also found some goblins who were searching for them. They killed a bunch of them and drove them back into the mountains because they were starting to get into his territory. And he actually went pretty far into the mountains. And he went before he returned. And he said they had a good time hunting down goblins and orcs, because he hates goblins and orcs more than anything, because they drove his people from the mountains. But it doesn't really tell in the books that he's the last of his kind, though. In the movie they do. He's like, oh, there's this evil orc god. It doesn't exist in the books. He enslaved my people and for torture and sport, which never happened in the book. There's no white orc. Then they spend some time there. They finally tell the guy that they plan to go through the Mirkwood to the Lonely Mountain, and they have to go through and he tells them how dangerous the woods are, that there's like a darkness that's creeping, and they have to stay on the path. Excuse me. I'll get some water. Sorry. All right, so in the books they go through. In the books, they go onto the path, and he says, "Do not drink from the streams, because the streams are enchanted with evil. The black water that flows through Mirkwood. Do not drink from those. You're gonna fall into that because it'll put a sleep spell over you." And he said, "Okay." And so he said, "Also, don't leave the path, because you get lost forever in these woods if you leave this path." And so he lets them borrow some of his ponies. And these ponies are pretty smart. And so he follows them. And it takes him a couple days to reach the path. It's not just like the same day. In the movie, they make it sound like before the afternoon was over. But several days they travel. And the bear in his bear form is following them secretly to make sure that no goblins come after him or anything. They reach the path. And Gandalf in the movie does say the same line he does in the book. Release the ponies, because they promised you. They said they would not take the ponies beyond into the woods. And then Gandalf in the book leaves them there. He says he needs to travel to have counsel and to investigate something. So he does leave them, and they do go into Mirkwood. He travels somewhere else. The same thing in the movie. But in the movie, this whole part of the movie is really fucking stupid, because they pretty much they rush into the house at night, board it, spend the night, eat with Bjoring, I think that's his name, Bjoring, and then they just fucking leave. And he tells them how he hates dwarves. He doesn't hate dwarves. In the book, there's nowhere in there he hates dwarves. He just doesn't like many people. He's a very hermity type person. But he says that he actually enjoyed Bilbo. And he told Bilbo that if he ever wants to return, he would be glad to have their company again. And to tell them more stories and, and talk about the Shire and stuff like that. Anyways, so they move on. On the path, there's no they're not swoon. In the movie, they make it sound like the woods is enchanting their mind, confusing them, getting them lost. That's not what happens in the book. In the book, they keep going the path. It's kind of boring in the book. Days, months they spend in this woods traveling through, and eventually they do kind of lose the path a little bit. They find it again, and then they come into a river. It's a river with a boat on the other side of the river, and they can't cross the water because they know if they get in the water it could enchant them. So they get a hook and some rope, and they try to keep trying to hook the boat. Finally they get it, and they start pulling it in. Unfortunately, one of the dwarves falls in, so he goes to sleep. They pull him out, but he's enchanted, and now he's asleep. And they're having trouble wakening him up. Well, they finally cross the river on this boat. On the other side, they have to carry him too now, because they have to carry their dwarf friend. They finally get to the other side, and a couple days later, I believe it's a couple days later, there's finally the dwarf starts to wake up from his enchanted sleep, and they see lights, and it seems like there's somebody dancing in the woods, and so they're hungry. Most of their pack is empty. They do have a point where in the movie where Bilbo climbs a tree to look out. He does this in the book because they're kind of lost. They're wondering how much further they have. So in the movie, they make it. He goes like, "Oh look, there's the mountain. There's all this. We're not that far off." In the book, they're like, "Nothing. No, it's not like that." Well, climbs a tree. They had the butterfly thing, which I did like about the movie, because that was in the book, that a bunch of butterflies were flying all over. And then he's looking out, and all he sees is nothing but trees, like a forest, an ocean of green, is what they explain. And it's way far off. He doesn't even see the mountain, I believe, in the book. But he can see a lake and a river. He sees a river flowing through. And he's like, hey, if we keep going that way, that's the way we have to go. So he climbs back down, tells them, hey, in the freaking movie, they're all captured by spiders at this point, which is dumb, because Bilbo never gets captured by the spiders. That's way off. So Bilbo climbs back down, tells them, hey, we still got a long way, it's probably a several-day journey still to go, if not weeks. So they keep going. And they eventually find the lights, as I said before, which are actually the elves, the wood elves. And they rush in, and the elves just vanish. Like smoke, just poof. They're like, well, that was weird. So they do it again, and then the elves keep vanishing, and all of a sudden they get hit by the spider. They run into the spiders, and the spiders capture most of the dwarves, but they don't ever capture Bilbo. It's actually pretty funny with the spider thing in Bilbo, because Bilbo is using the ring to hide from the spiders. And what he would do is he'd go to a certain point, because there's in the book, it seems like there's a circular area within the forest that's surrounded by webs. And this is their nest. And there's I think there's only 3 great spiders instead of an army of them. And they're chatting about how to eat them, to kill them now, or wait, don't kill them yet, let them sit for a couple days swinging to let the juices build, or something like that. In the movie, they don't do any of that stuff. They until he puts the ring on, then he can understand them for some reason. It's supposed to, like, I guess the ring translates. Whatever. But, yeah. So Bilbo takes up rocks in the book. And he takes his ring off, hits one of the spiders in the eye, and kills a spider. Not the big spider, but the smaller spiders, because there's a couple smaller spiders. He kills one of the smaller spiders with a rock. He laughs, he starts saying, little spiders can't get me. You know, I'm faster than you, something, something. And he makes like this little like rhyme almost. And then he sneaks off. He runs off. The spiders follow him. And he puts his ring back on and sneaks around invisible back to the nest. And he gets one of the dwarves free. And he does it one at a time. So it's not like he cuts them all down and then they all fight. No, he gets them and he's secretly getting them out of there one at a time until the last one. Finally, he has to walk up on the web across, and there's one spider's guarding the last guy. And he kills that one with Sting. He doesn't name Sting at this point, okay? That was the dumbest thing in the movie, where it stings! And he's like, oh, that's a great name, Sting! No, that's not how the damn sword is named. Jesus Christ. Oh, man, God, this movie was so far off. I don't know. I need to look up who was the one that created the first movie and the second, because the guy who created the first part did a great job. The guy who created the second part, way off. It was just like they were trying to follow the book as best they could in an unexpected journey. Second part, they're just like, fuck it, we're going to do what we want. And they completely fucked up this book. The movie was bad. The book was great. The movie was bad. Because I think this is when this is why the Tolkien family weren't very happy. Yeah, they screwed up so much. This could be a long video. Oh my God! All right, they keep going. Eventually, he gets them all out. You know, Bilbo's doing his little sneak thing. This really impresses the dwarves. And then they get captured by the elves. They actually run into elves. They all get enchanted and they all fall asleep. And they wake up and they're being hauled by the elves. And I believe that's what happens in the book. I have to remember. It's been a while since I did the book for the Hobbit. But anyway, they get captured by the elves and they get brought before the king. And they're kind of rude to the king. That's the only reason he locks them up, is because they refuse to tell them the quest. In the movie, he guesses the quest, which is dumb. And then Bilbo, and then they make it sound like Bilbo's only there for like a day. They're locked up for weeks, like weeks. And Bilbo is going in and out of the place, because every once in a while they'll send out hunters. And what he'll do is he'll sneak out with the hunters and then sneak in before the hunters return. But he's always got the ring on. So for weeks, Bilbo's kept the ring on his finger. And he's sneaking around. What else, another thing is weird, is how the movies portray hobbits. In the books, they wear boots. But they're still very quiet creatures. They don't make any sound whatsoever when walking. It's a very, very important thing in the book. In the movies, they give them bare feet. And they make them sound like... And they make a lot of noise when they walk. Which I think they should... If I was going to do the movie, I would take out all the sound of them walking. So that there was no... as he's walking around, there's no noise. So, for this week, Bilbo is... hiding. He's watching the guards. He's watching the paladins, because they're all separate. They're not in all one area. In the movie, they put them in all jails in one little area. In the book, they're separated throughout this elvish kingdom, and he has to figure out where they all are. And Thorin is actually put in the very darkest, deepest part of it. And they're all losing faith. They're all losing hope. They're all losing everything. Eventually, when Bilbo finds them all, he lets them know, hey, I'm still here. I'm sneaking around. I'm starting to develop a plan. Because he's noticed that every so often they dump these barrels. Because they get food and stuff from the city. They trade with the lake town. And what they do is they get the barrels, brought to them. It's wine, usually wine barrels. Big, nasty wine barrels. they drink wine, and then they seal the barrels and then let them float down a stream to an area where boatmen will get them, put them on their barges, and then take them back to Lake Town. So Bilbo starts thinking, hey, if I can load them into these barrels, seal them, and have them float down the river, they can escape that way. And the dwarves don't like it because they think they're going to drown. But he convinces this is the only way out. So in the movie, they really fucked this up because they really made it sound like, he did it in like one afternoon. He snuck in, stole the keys, unlocked all the cells in one little area, got them all out. But he waits, and there's a big feast, there's a big celebration, and everybody's getting drunk. And so that part they did right with the two elves, the captain of the guard and the jailer get drunk together, have their own little tiny party off the king's wine, his special wine, and they pass out. And that's when he takes the key, and he sneaks and he unlocks one cage at a time. Get one dwarf, loads them into a barrel, seals it so their heads aren't sticking out, and he dumps them in the water. He keeps them. He doesn't dump them yet. And then he does that one at a time until he gets everyone into the barrels. And then he realizes no barrel for him. And what he planned on doing is leaving through the gate, fall in the river till he gets them. But fortunately, he can't do that because, So they get released by the guards. They release the barrels. They all get dumped. He goes in after them. So he's holding on to the outside of the barrel. And it's supposed to be like kind of cold. So it's like really winter time. So he's freezing. He's cold. He's wet. It's miserable. Hanging for dear life on the side. Invisible. He's still got the ring on. So he's holding on to this thing. And finally, the raftmen down the river get the barrels. They load the barrels onto their thing. And onto pretty much a big raft. And he hides on the raft while he's still freezing cold. And he's starting to get a cold because he's starting to sneeze. And he's afraid that the sneeze are actually give him away. And then they reach the city, Lake Town. But if I rewind a little bit for the movie. Okay, in the movie, they pretty much, they escape. There's a bunch of freaking orcs that attack. There's a female elf, Legolas. None of that is in the books. None of it. Okay, I don't even think they mentioned Legolas. I know he's the prince. They may have mentioned him once, but that's it. And so they escape, and the king doesn't really give a shit. He's just like, what? They got away? How the hell did they get away? It confuses him. And he's, for a long time, he doesn't understand how they got out. So, okay. And there's no orc chase. There's no, attack on the bridge. They seal the thing. The guy gets hit in the leg with a, arrow. None of that ever happened in the book. They just float down the river, ice cold rapids. They get to the thing. The guys pull them on board. They get them to Lake Town, and then they burst out when they get to Lake Town. Everybody's like, whoa, what the fuck? And then they're taken before pretty much the master of the city. And the captain of the guards is, oh my god. Okay, there's a master of the city who's pretty much like a corrupt businessman, pretty much. He's like a merchant. Pretty much rules this town. And he does, he doesn't really take care of his people. The captain of the guards is the guy, what's his name? Oh, it's escaping me right now. Oh, I can't think of it. Shit. But anyways, he's a guy that helps the dwarves in the movie. Oh my god, I can't think of it. The son of... He's the ancestor of the guy who once ruled the city. Barge. Now, this could bother me because I'm going to remember it later. Anyways, he's pretty much the ancestor. He's the one that shoots the black arrow and kills the dragon in the next part. But he's that ancestor. And the master doesn't really like him. He knows he's the captain of his guards, but he doesn't like him because he believes there's like a power struggle between him and, yeah. So, Barge? I think his name is Barge. Or, Bard. Bard. Oh my God. Sorry about that. Yeah, Bard is his name. He's the ancestor. And so, he's still got one black arrow left. And he doesn't use a big crossbow that they show in the movie. He uses regular bow and arrow. He just climbs up on a big tall tower, and fires, and it hits the right spot. And in the book, they also don't tell that his ancestor fired a bunch of arrows, and that's what loosened the scale. No, it just says that over time, he lost the scale, so he's got an exposed part. And Bilbo is the one who noticed it, which told a bird, which the bird told him. Okay, in the movie, they talk about this bird. You'll see the bird who knocks on the thing. In the book, it's way more important. It's an old bird that has an ancestry with Bard's ancestors, that they can communicate. They understand language. They're a very smart bird, and they can whisper in their ear, and they can understand what the bird is saying. And they would use them as like messenger birds. So remember that. So that bird is, I think they call it, what do they call that thing? I can't remember, but it starts with a T. And so the bird is, yeah, and it knows how to squeeze through like a hole. The key opens up, and the bird will go in and out, in and out. And the dragon knows of this bird, but he doesn't care because he's just like, whatever. But later on, he gets pissed because he realizes that that's how the dwarves got in. Anyways, they're brought before the guy. Bard says, no way in hell should we let you go to the mountain, because you're going to bring the dragon down on us. And the master sees this and knows it's an opportunity for political gain, pretty much. He says, oh, shut up, Bard. You just don't want us to share in the gold. Or you want to take the gold for yourself, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So the master demands that, he says, hey, we'll let you go. We'll arm you. We'll supply you. We'll give you horses. Ponies, pretty much. They give them a bunch of ponies so they could carry a bunch of equipment with them. And so they use these ponies and stuff, and they travel back up to the mountain. And it takes them, it's actually like a couple weeks that they're there. They're surveying the mountainside, trying to find the area, the spot with the keyhole. Because it's not really set in, and the thing, the map is supposed to like show right where it is. But in the book, it takes them a lot longer to find it. It's like up on a little platform. And in the movie, it looks a lot smaller platform than in the book. The book makes it sound like there's a lot bigger space. It's like a platform, and then you go up in another platform that kind of overhangs it. That's where the bird lives, and on top of that platform is where the keyhole is. So, they finally get in. They open the door, they get in. They open the door and they stay inside the hole. They stay at the camp there. They have a camp down below, camp up here on the ridge, but they're staying kind of inside the door so the door doesn't shut. And they keep sending Bilbo down. Bilbo goes down and he sneaks around for a bit, doesn't see the dragon, and he picks up a gold item and comes back to prove that he's done it. They're like, oh, good job, congratulations. And then he goes back down again. And that's when the dragon finally realizes he's there. They have the big, speech, I am Barrel Rider, blah, blah, blah. And then he smells fish on Bilbo. And he says, you're from Lake Town. And he says, what? No, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, I also smell dwarves. I know they're hiding somewhere. And so he leaves. He blasts fire at Bilbo, who runs back up the path and gets away. This pisses off the dragon, because he realizes there's a hole that's allowing people to come in and out. And he kind of knows where it's at. So he leaves. He sneaks out. He goes out the front doors. And he goes around. And he sneaks up. Not on the mountain, but flies. And he kind of does it silently. And he comes around. And he sees them on the side. They all run in and the door shuts. So they're trapped inside, and he knows that their ponies are below. So for like a whole night, he's gone. He's chasing down the ponies, and he's eating the ponies. And so they think he's gone for a little while. Then he returns, but they're still hiding in the past, so he can't get to them. This big, like, stairway. But he decides that he's gonna, terrorize the lake people for their, sending the dwarves at him. So he decides to take off. He'll come back for the dwarves. That's his plan. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to get out. He already blasted that side of the mountain with fire. Trapped them inside. That's in the book. So he flies off to Lake Town. The dwarves don't realize he's gone. They finally come down after Bilbo goes down and finds the Harken Stone and hides it. For some reason he hides it. He puts it in his pocket. And he doesn't tell anybody about it. So in the movie, there's a lot more with the dragon. The dragon's chasing him around. They try to bury him under gold. None of that ever happened in the book at all. Dragon flies off. He burns down Lake Town, like straight up burns down the town. They're all like, people are jumping in the water, trying to escape. And then, Bard, because of the bird, remember the bird, was listening to a conversation. See, okay, let me rephrase the beginning part. When Bilbo goes down and finds a cup, he sees the dragon. And the dragon kind of turns and he reveals the weak spot in his armor, underneath his belly. That there's one spot was not covered with jewels. It's because in the book, his entire underside is covered in jewels. And the top is covered in scales. So the jewels protect his underbelly, the scales protect his over. For one spot. Sorry, my phone's kind of getting, I think the sun's starting to affect my phone. Yeah, but anyways, what happens that's what, Bilbo sees that, and he goes back and he tells the dwarves the bird is actually there listening in. It's listening to their conversation. It hears about the weakness of the dragon, all this stuff, and how they found the door and stuff. And it goes back to Bard. It flies back to the city, goes to Bard, and whispers in Bard's ear, tells him of the weak spot in the dragon's armor, tells him everything, what's going on. And that's how Bard knows about the scale missing. So the dragon comes on, and so it descends upon the city, and it's burning everything. He pulls out the black arrow. He literally has it with him at all times. It's not like it's a big, massive piece. It's an arrow with a black head. It's like a special kind of arrow. And he runs up, and it says that it always fires true. It's almost enchanted in a way that always hits its mark. No matter what, it always hits its mark. And he's kept it safe for years, and he's only used it, and it's been passed down to him. The special black arrow, has been passed down to him. But yeah, and so when the dragon flies over for the final time, Bard fires. It sinks into the beast's heart, killing it. It lands in the lake, and the lake pretty much swallows him because he's a fire drake. Water is his weakness. So the lake just swallows him whole. And that is where he'll finally lay, where the black arrow is still sticking out of his bones. And so they all make it, but the city's still on fire and it's burning down. They all get back to shore, on the other side of shore. And then that's when the elves meet. Later on, the elves meet up with the people, and they help them out because their city's on fire. And that's when they hear about what's going on. The dragon's dead, so the elves and the people want kind of like payment. So they march onto the mountain, and they're demanding payment. But I won't talk about that yet. That's in the next part. So dragon's gone, and in the book, the dwarves and Bilbo are trying to find a way out. Because now they can't go out the back door. They think the dragon's going to come back any minute. So they're sneaking around, trying to find an exit. And then they find armor. They re-armor themselves with dwarvish armor. Mail. Bilbo gets a special mail jacket. So now they're equipped with actual dwarvish arms. And then they go and they try to, barricade the front. They're getting ready for the dragon to return. And it's days and days, and nothing happens. Nothing comes back. So they're like, "What's going on? Why isn't the dragon returned? What happened?" Eventually, they're going to learn the dragon died. So they're pretty much reclaiming their thing. They send word. The bird returns to the dwarves or something like that. Or they send somehow they stay. Yeah, it was the bird. They tell the bird to deliver a message to one of their kin. So they write a letter. They tie it to the bird's foot, and the bird's supposed to fly to the Iron Mountains to their kin and let them know, "Hey, we reclaimed the mountain. Please send help," so that they can keep it. So all that, and it's pretty much where that movie ends. Is when the dragon flies off, but the book was a lot longer, so I guess I could end it there. So if I really rate these, the Desolation of Smaulge was crap. The movie was absolute shit. I'm sorry. Like, I liked it if it wasn't The Lord of the Rings. If it was just a fantasy about a dragon and some dwarves, and it's fine. But it was way worse than the Unexpected Journey compared to the book. I don't understand that they put so much in it that didn't need to be in there. Like, the whole river chase thing should have been cut out. They should have just had him float down the river. They should have done is did the whole story with. But I get it. It's a movie. You need to keep people interested. So I get more action makes people want to see it. I don't know. Oh my God, it was so bad. This is Aragon level of bad. Okay, Aragon was one of my favorite movies until I read the book, and I realized how fucked up that movie was from the book. Oh, yeah. There's so much they didn't put into the movie that was in the book, or changed so much that didn't need to be changed. I didn't like it. But, that's my opinion. If I was going to rate it, I'd rate the Desolation of Smaulge. If it was by itself, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. But based on the book, 2. I'd give it a 2 out of 10. It had cool visuals. That's it. Compared to the book had a lot better. And I'd rather have something that's closer to the book than just trying to make stuff up. So, yeah. Unfortunately, that's what happened in part 2. And hopefully we'll have part 3 out today or tomorrow. We'll see. I was lucky to get the part 2. Well, I might get out part 3 today. I probably will, actually. I'll have to watch the movie again. Yeah. So, thank you for all being here. Please sub, like, share. And take care of each other. Stay safe. And, just have a good time, all right? I'll see you next time.